Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte. And today we're taking a look at your Montreal Canadiens, as the Canadiens are in search of a new general manager to take over the reins from their former general manager, Marc Bergevin. He's been with the team for a decade, and, we've had this sense that there could be some change in Montreal now for a little while. A couple of names have been thrown out there, and we're going to go over some of the candidates for the next GM in Montreal. So let's get right into it. So from NHL Watcher, TSN's Chris Johnston said that Tampa Bay Lightning's Director of Hockey Operations, Matthew Darche, I guess that's how you say it, right? Matthew Darche, could be a good candidate to replace Marc Bergevin in Montreal. A couple of other names we've heard thrown out there, and this is really nothing too new for you guys, but you have Daniel Briere, who was, a big player for the Philadelphia Flyers, spent a little time with the Montreal Canadiens in his NHL career. Roberto Luongo, pretty self-explanatory, who we know who Roberto Luongo is, and Martin Madden Jr. So there's a couple different names thrown out there. Could be three other candidates. Now, this is from Andrew Zadarnowski. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Daniel Briere is an interesting underdog for the Habs GM spot. He's VP of Hockey Operations and the general manager of the Maine Mariners in the East Coast Hockey League for 5 years, most of it as an affiliate of the Rangers. Briere most certainly worked with Gorton a lot, which, if you don't know, Jeff Gorton, who was the former general manager of the New York Rangers, he is now the president of hockey operations for the Montreal Canadiens. So this is from Joe Smith. The Tampa Bay Lightning assistant general manager Matthew Darche should get a look at the Habs GM job. Ironically, when Darche left Montreal Customs Brokerage for Tampa, his boss said the only way he'd disappoint me personally is if he wasn't GM of the Canadiens in 5 years. So all of a sudden, here we go. He is potentially on the way back to Montreal. Now, here's another name that nobody's said in these articles, but a name we've definitely heard thrown out there. Now, there has been some questioning about whether Patrick Roy would be a good general manager of the Montreal Canadiens or not. He's got a pretty good gig right now in the QMJHL, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, with the Quebec Ramparts, who is just down the road from the Montreal Canadiens. And he's had some really good success there as the head coach and I believe the GM of the Ramparts. So I think Patrick Roy, if he were to move, you'd have to give him that kind of role. I don't think he'd take a head coach role in Montreal. I think he'd want that general management tag. And, like I said, there is that potential there. That's the name everybody, knows and everybody thinks would be the most interesting fit in a return of Patrick Roy, but I don't know how good the relationship between Roy and ownership is. There has been some questions about that in the past, and that may end up ultimately being why he doesn't get the job. So looking at each of the candidates, I really, at the end of the day, I think all these guys would be really nice for the Habs as their next general manager. They have to have that, they have to be a francophone, which some people like, some people don't like. Quite honestly, I understand why the Montreal Canadiens want that. It's so deep-rooted in the team's culture. It's not like a 10-year thing that they just said, we're going to stick with it. This has gone on generations after generations in Montreal ever since the beginning. So I do understand why that is a thing. And obviously with doing interviews post-game and interviews at the end of the season and stuff like that, you have to be able to connect with that market. And that is, honestly, that's part of being French. That is a part of that. Roberto Luongo would be interesting because, if I'm not mistaken, he's currently with the Florida Panthers organization, either as a director of amateur scouting or something of that ill. We know he's since he retired, he's wanted to get back into hockey. He obviously wanted some time with his family. But it sounds like you can only, he's like many other retired players. You're out of it for a little while, and then you're like, yeah, I kind of miss that hockey touch. And Roberto Luongo, there's a great way for him to, we always tend to forget this stuff, but these guys are competitive in nature. And this is a guy in Roberto Luongo, as well as Danny Briere. We saw quickly after his retirement, he got back into the management side of hockey. That these guys want that competitive edge without necessarily being able to play. And this is exactly that position. So, at the end of the day, who would be my top 3 candidates? I'm going to narrow this down to 3. We've got a couple names here. So, top 3. I am going to go with Matthew Darche. I think Matthew Darche is a top 3 candidate for that job. Obviously, he's had some connections to Montreal since before he came down to Tampa. So that is something that I definitely think there's a strong correlation between that working out in Montreal. Patrick Roy, I think, again, this is more the wild card pick. This is more me saying this is the guy I want to see, not necessarily who will go there. But I think Patrick Roy would... Obviously, it would be a very interesting headline, wouldn't it? Seeing Patrick Roy return to the Montreal Canadiens as the general manager. I think that would be really, really interesting. But honestly, the guy that I like the most out of these guys here is Danny Briere. I think Danny Briere is one of those young guys. We kind of saw it with Chris Drury in his time with the New York Rangers when he was developing under Jeff Gorton. Danny Briere seems like the guy that, obviously he's Quebec. You look at his name, his last name, clearly he's French. But this is a guy that's played for the Montreal Canadiens, a really good NHL player. I remember hating him for a while because he was with the Flyers. He was a really good hockey player. And now he's already got that management experience. I think everything kind of lines up for Danny Briere to take this job. With that said, though, Matthew Darche at this moment is the front runner to get that position. So if things change with Matthew Darche, maybe he wants to stay in Tampa Bay. You could probably see why he'd want to stay in Tampa, considering how good they've been. But if he's looking to make that next step, become the next general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, going back to his hometown roots, I do see a fit there for Darche going to the Habs. But at the end of the day, like I said, I really do like the idea of Danny Briere going there. And, this is a guy that hasn't really been talked about much. I'd love to see, I know he's with the New Jersey Devils right now, but Marty Brodeur, imagine Marty Brodeur, the next general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. That would be pretty interesting. So guys, that is it for today's video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, more videos just like this one, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you later.